Ever wondered what they're not telling you? You're sitting there, trying to figure out why your lights just went out again, even though the app said you had another hour. You're looking at your grocery bill, wondering when a loaf of bread started costing the same as a small plot of land. It feels like there's a whole other story happening just behind the curtain, right? A story where the official explanations don't quite add up, and you're left with more questions than answers. It's like being in a relationship where your partner says it's fine, but you just know it is very much not fine. Well, my fellow South Africans, you're not going crazy. There's a lot going on beneath the surface, a whole world of information that doesn't always make it to the 6 o'clock news. It's a complex, sometimes frustrating, but always fascinating reality. We're talking about the details that get glossed over, the numbers that get fudged, and the deals that happen in rooms you'll never see. It's the kind of stuff that affects your daily life in profound ways, from the water in your tap to the money in your pocket. It's time to pull back that curtain just a little bit. So grab your rooibos, find a comfortable seat, preferably one with a backup power source, because we are about to dive deep into the rabbit hole. We're going to connect the dots and look at the things that are conveniently left out of the conversation. I've done the digging, I've sifted through the jargon, and I'm here to break it all down for you, one shocking revelation at a time. Here are the top 10 secrets being kept from South Africans right now. Alright, let's kick things off with something straight out of a spy movie, except the spy is probably stuck in traffic on the N1. Government surveillance. We all kind of joke about it, right? Don't say that too loud, the government will hear you. But what if the joke isn't actually that funny? Did you know the government might be watching more than you think? We're not just talking about keeping an eye on genuine threats, we're talking about a potential net that's cast much, much wider than you'd be comfortable with. Think about it. In South Africa, we have the Regulation of Interception of Communications and Provision of Communication-Related Information Act, or RICA. On paper, it's for fighting crime. You register your SIM card, they have your details, and it helps track down criminals. Fantastic. We all want less crime. But here's the secret part. The potential for abuse of this system is massive. It creates a framework where, with the right or wrong piece of paper, your private conversations, your messages, your entire digital life could become an open book. And who's watching the watchers? That's the million-rand question. We've seen reports and whispers over the years of journalists, activists, and political opponents who suspect their communications have been monitored. It's a subtle kind of power. It's not about kicking down your door, it's about knowing what you're thinking, who you're talking to, and what you're planning. It creates a chilling effect, where people become afraid to speak out against corruption or injustice for fear of being targeted. The technology is only getting more advanced. We're talking about sophisticated software that can sift through millions of calls and messages, flagging keywords. It's not some guy in a trench coat listening in with headphones anymore. It's algorithms and AI. And while the government will always say this is for national security, the line between securing the nation and securing the ruling party's power can sometimes get blurry. It's a very thin line, like the one between well done and medium rare at a braai. The real secret isn't that surveillance exists, it's the scope of it and the lack of transparent oversight. How many warrants are being issued? Who are they targeting, and for what reasons? This information is often shrouded in secrecy, always under the banner of state security. It's like your parents saying because I said so, but with far bigger consequences than not being allowed to go to the party. So when you send that WhatsApp message complaining about the potholes, is anyone listening? Probably not. But could they? The infrastructure is there, and that's the unsettling truth. The secret isn't a ghost in the machine. It's the fact that the machine was built, it's running, and we're not allowed to look at the user manual. Let's uncover the truth about surveillance in South Africa. Load shedding, South Africa's national sport. We've all become experts, we have the apps, we know the stages, we can plan a 3-course meal in the 2 hours of power we're allotted between 6 and 8 p.m. It's a part of our lives. We've accepted the official reason: our power stations are old, they're breaking down, and there's not enough capacity to meet demand. It's a simple, unfortunate story. But what if it's not the whole story? Are the real reasons behind load shedding being kept from the public? Let's start with the basics. Eskom tells us it's about maintenance, breakdowns, and a lack of generation capacity. And yes, that's definitely a huge part of the problem. Decades of mismanagement and corruption have left our power utility in a shambles. No one is denying that. But the secret lies in the nuances and the convenient omissions. For instance, how much of the unplanned breakdowns are truly unpredictable, and how much is a result of deliberate choices? Think about the coal contracts. We hear whispers of certain suppliers with political connections providing low-quality wet coal that damages the power stations. This isn't just a technical problem, it's a supply chain problem rooted in dodgy deals. It means a station might go offline, not because it's old, but because it was fed garbage fuel. But the official statement will just say, unplanned outage at Kusili. See how a complex story of corruption gets simplified into a technical glitch? Then there's the manipulation of the schedules themselves. Have you ever noticed how, miraculously, load shedding seems to ease up just before a major election? Or how a sudden jump to stage 6 happens right when there's unpopular political news conveniently distracting everyone? While it's hard to prove direct causation, the patterns are suspicious. It suggests that load shedding might be used not just as a technical tool, but as a political lever. It's the ultimate national mood killer, and that can be a powerful thing to control. Let's also talk about the renewable energy saga. For years, the rollout of independent power producers was deliberately slowed down. Projects were approved but delayed, bogged down in red tape. Why? Some insiders argue it was to protect entrenched interests in the coal industry. So, while we were sitting in the dark, viable solutions were being kept on the back burner. The secret isn't that we don't have power, it's that we've been actively prevented from getting access to alternative sources of it. So the next time the lights go out, remember it's not just about an old boiler giving up the ghost. It's a story of questionable coal, political chess, and sabotaged solutions. The narrative of Oops, It Broke Again is a convenient simplification that hides a much dirtier, more complex reality. The secret is that load shedding is as much a political crisis as it is an energy one. Here's what you need to know. We live in a water-scarce country. We're taught this from a young age. Don't leave the tap running. It's drilled into us. We've had the Day Zero scare in Cape Town, a wake-up call for the whole nation. We know we need to be careful, but here's the terrifying secret. The water crisis is worse than reported. The official reports often paint a picture of a challenge that is being managed. The reality on the ground in many parts of the country is a silent catastrophe. Let's look beyond the major cities. In countless smaller towns and rural communities, taps have already run dry. Not for a day, not for a week, but for months, even years. People are relying on intermittent water tanker deliveries, which are often unreliable and sometimes a source of local corruption themselves. This isn't a future threat, it's a current, devastating reality for millions of South Africans, but it rarely makes the national headlines. The secret is buried in the numbers. The government might report on dam levels, which can be a useful indicator. But what they don't emphasize is the state of the infrastructure that's supposed to get that water from the dam to your tap. It's estimated that we lose over 40% of our clean, treated water through leaks in aging, crumbling pipes before it even reaches a single home. That's nearly half. Imagine baking a cake and then just throwing half of it in the bin before you serve it. It's madness. And what about the quality of the water that does make it through? The Green Drop report, which assesses the state of our wastewater treatment plants, has shown a catastrophic decline. Many systems are failing, which means poorly treated or even raw sewage is being discharged back into our rivers and dams. This pollutes the very sources we rely on for drinking water, leading to health crises like cholera outbreaks. They tell us the water is safe to drink, but in many places that is a dangerous lie. The official narrative focuses on drought and climate change, and those are absolutely real factors. But they are a convenient scapegoat. They mask the true culprits: decades of underinvestment, a critical loss of skilled engineers and technicians at municipal levels, and rampant corruption in the awarding of maintenance contracts. It's easier to blame the lack of rain than to admit that the people in charge have failed to maintain the pipes. So while we are all dutifully taking 2-minute showers, the system itself is hemorrhaging water and being poisoned from within. The Day Zero panic in Cape Town was a glimpse of the future, but it was also a distraction. It made us think it was a regional problem that was solved. The secret is that Day Zero is already here for many, and it's creeping closer for everyone else. Find out what's really happening with our water supply. Public tenders. It sounds so official, so boring, right? But actually it's the process of government buying goods and services, from building a school to, buying pencils for an office. It's supposed to be fair, transparent, and get the best value for taxpayers' money. That's, well, the theory anyway. But here in South Africa, the tender system has turned into, like, a treasure chest for the politically connected. The secret isn't that there's corruption. We all know that. The real secret is just the sheer scale and systematic nature of it. Corruption in public tenders is honestly way more widespread than you might think. It's not just a few bad apples, it's actually the entire orchard. The system has been designed, or maybe it's just evolved, to be easily manipulated. It starts with the specifications. A tender will be issued with these super specific, sometimes totally obscure requirements, so that only one pre-selected company can possibly qualify. It might even be something as ridiculous as, the supplier must have a CEO whose middle name is Bartholomew and owns a three-legged dog. It's a subtle way of making sure the contract goes exactly where it's supposed to. Then you've got these bid-rigging cartels. A group of companies will secretly agree to take turns winning contracts. One company will put in a ridiculously high bid, another a slightly less high bid, and the designated winner puts in a bid that looks reasonable by comparison, even though it's still, wildly inflated. They all get a piece of the pie, and the taxpayer, well, gets fleeced. It's a sophisticated, collusive dance, and it happens in everything from bread distribution to major construction projects. And let's not forget about the 10%ers. It's kind of an open secret in many government departments that if you want your invoice paid for a job you've legitimately completed, a 10% facilitation fee might need to be paid to the right official. So, it's not just about winning the tender, it's about actually getting the money you're owed. This whole thing creates a system where honest businesses just can't compete, and the ones that play the game simply build that 10% cost into their quote from the start, which means, yeah, the public ends up paying for the bribe. The consequences are honestly devastating, and you can see them everywhere. It's the RDP house with cracking walls built with substandard materials. It's the brand new road that's full of potholes after the first rain. It's the school that never gets the textbooks it ordered. Every rand stolen through a corrupt tender is a rand not spent on a vital public service. It's theft, not from a faceless state, but from every single one of us. The Zondo Commission pulled back the curtain on some of this, but honestly that was just the tip of the iceberg. For every case of state capture that got exposed, there are thousands of smaller, everyday acts of corruption happening at municipal and provincial levels that never see the light of day. The secret is that this isn't just a few high-level crooks, it's a deeply embedded culture. So let's break down the hidden deals. You go to the supermarket, right? You pick up the essentials: bread, milk, maize meal, cooking oil. Then you get to the till, and the number that pops up gives you a small heart attack. It feels like just last month your money went further. You're not imagining things. Food prices are skyrocketing, and it's really hitting the poorest South Africans the hardest. The official explanation? Well, they say it's global supply chain issues, the war in Ukraine, rising fuel costs. And honestly, all of that is true, but it's not the full story. So why are food prices skyrocketing? The real causes might just surprise you. One of the biggest secrets is the lack of competition in our food production and retail sectors. A very small number of massive corporations control everything, from the farms that grow the food to the supermarkets that sell it. This is what economists call an oligopoly. When a few big players dominate the market, they can pretty much set prices without worrying about smaller competitors undercutting them. Think about it. When the fuel price goes up, they immediately pass that cost on to you, the consumer. But when the fuel price comes down, do you see a drop in your grocery bill? Not really. These big corporations just absorb those savings as extra profit. They have no real incentive to lower prices because honestly, where else are you going to go? The small local grocer was probably pushed out of business by them years ago. Then there's the financialization of food. It sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. Food items like maize and wheat are traded on financial markets as commodities, just like gold or oil. This means their prices can be influenced by speculators who have never even set foot on a farm. A trader in Johannesburg or London can bet on the future price of maize, causing a price spike that has nothing to do with the actual harvest or demand. So you end up paying more for your pap just because someone in a suit made a good bet. We also have to look back at our own infrastructure. The crumbling state of our rail network means that most food has to be transported by truck. This is way more expensive and totally reliant on that volatile fuel price. So, a failure to invest in our railways years ago is now directly adding to the cost of your food today. It's just another example of how one government failure cascades into another, and, at the end of the day, you're the one who picks up the tab. So yeah, global events do play a role, But the secret is that our domestic market is structured in a way that makes us uniquely vulnerable to price shocks, and allows a few powerful players to profit from the situation. They're not just passing on costs, they're actually padding them. The story they sell us is all about unavoidable global pressures, but they leave out the part about their own role in making a bad situation even worse for the average family. Every quarter, Stats SA releases the unemployment figures. It's always a huge news day. We see the headline number, maybe it's gone up a bit, maybe it's gone down a fraction of a percent. Politicians from different parties will then argue about what it actually means. But what if that headline number, the one that gets all the attention, is actually a carefully constructed illusion? Are the unemployment numbers being massaged? The secret isn't that they're lying exactly, it's just that they're not telling you the whole truth. The key is in the definition. The official unemployment rate only counts people who are actively looking for a job but can't find one. But what about the people who have given up? The millions of South Africans who've looked for so long, sent out so many CVs and faced so much rejection that they've just lost hope and stopped searching? These are called discouraged work seekers. In the official stats, they just disappear. They're not even counted as unemployed. This is where the expanded definition of unemployment comes in. This one actually includes the discouraged work seekers. And when you look at that number, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. The expanded unemployment rate is always way higher than the official rate. We're talking about a difference of millions of people. It's the difference between a crisis and a full-blown catastrophe. But the expanded rate only gets, like, a passing mention, while the lower, more palatable official rate gets the headline. Why would they do this? Because the official number is just less politically damaging. It lets the government claim that their job creation programs are having some effect, even if it's tiny. It makes the problem look manageable. Admitting that nearly half the potential workforce is sitting at home without a job is a devastating admission of failure. So they focus on the metric that looks, well, the least bad. It's kind of like measuring your weight, but forgetting to include your left leg. Then there's the quality of the jobs being created. The stats don't always tell us if it's a stable, full-time job with benefits or just a temporary part-time gig in the gig economy with no security at all. So a rise in employment could just mean more people are working precarious, low-paying jobs. It looks good on a spreadsheet, but it doesn't actually translate to real economic upliftment for families. It's a statistical victory that, honestly, feels like a real-world loss. The secret, then, is that the unemployment statistics we get are actually a form of political communication, not just a neutral reflection of reality. They're designed to manage public perception. By using a narrow definition and ignoring the discouraged millions, they present a mirage of a situation that's just slightly less desperate than it really is. Here's the data they don't want you to see. Land reform. It's honestly one of the most emotive, complex, and crucial issues in South Africa. It's about correcting the injustices of the past, about apartheid's legacy of dispossession. For decades, we've been told it's a priority. We've heard promise after promise, plan after plan, and yet progress has been painfully, agonizingly slow. So, what's really holding back land reform? The secret is that the delays are not just due to legal complexities or a lack of money. It's a story of political paralysis, bureaucratic sabotage, and, a fundamental lack of will. The official narrative often points to the willing buyer, willing seller model as a major bottleneck, and the debate around expropriation without compensation has dominated the headlines. These are important constitutional and legal debates, no doubt, but they also serve as a convenient distraction from the failures happening within the system itself. It's like arguing about the color you want to paint the house while the foundations are crumbling. One of the biggest hidden roadblocks is sheer bureaucratic incompetence within the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development. We've heard countless stories of land claims being lost, files gathering dust for decades, and officials who are either unable or unwilling to process applications efficiently. Farmers who are willing to sell their land to the state for redistribution find themselves trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare, waiting years for payment or for the deal to be finalized. Then there's the issue of post-settlement support, or, well, the lack thereof. This is a critical, often ignored part of the secret. In the cases where land is actually successfully transferred to new black farmers, they are often set up to fail. They are given the land, but no access to the capital, the training, the equipment, or the market connections needed to run a successful commercial farm. It's like being given the keys to a Formula One car, but no driving lessons and no fuel. The subsequent failure of these farms is then cynically used by opponents of land reform as proof that it doesn't work. Let's also be honest about the politics. For some within the ruling party, land reform is more useful as a political slogan than as an accomplished fact. It's a powerful tool for mobilizing voters, a promise that can be endlessly recycled at election time. Actually solving the land question would mean losing a key political issue. So there's a perverse incentive to keep the process slow and complicated, to keep the grievance alive. The truth behind the delays is a toxic mix of everything. It's a legal framework that has been slow to adapt, a bureaucracy that is broken, a lack of meaningful support for new farmers, and honestly a political class that has, in many ways, benefited from the stalemate. The secret is that the failure of land reform isn't an accident. It's the predictable result of a system that is failing on every single level. State capture. The term has, become part of our daily vocabulary, thanks to the heroic work of journalists and the Zondo Commission. We know the broad strokes, the Gupta family, the compromised politicians, the hollowing out of state-owned enterprises like Eskom and Transnet. We saw the testimony, we read the reports. It feels like, well, the story has been told. But how much do we really know about state capture? The secret is that what we've seen is just what was visible on the surface. Many details are still under wraps. The Zondo Commission was a monumental undertaking, but it had its limits. It couldn't investigate everything and everyone. It followed the evidence that was presented to it. But what about the evidence that was successfully hidden or destroyed? What about the international enablers, the global banks, accounting firms, and consultants who facilitated the looting, but were largely outside the Commission's direct reach? We saw some of their names, but the full extent of their complicity remains a closely guarded secret in boardrooms in London, New York, and Dubai. Think of it like a crime scene. The Zondo Commission mapped out the bodies and the obvious weapons, but the full network of accomplices, the ones who drove the getaway cars and laundered the money through complex offshore accounts, is still largely intact and operating. These are the people who are not going to testify. Their secrets are protected by layers of corporate law and international financial secrecy. Then there's the question of accountability. The Zondo report made hundreds of recommendations for prosecution. But the National Prosecuting Authority, or NPA, has been slow to act. Is this just a lack of capacity, as they often claim? Or is there political pressure to protect certain individuals who are still in powerful positions? The secret here is the ongoing political battle happening behind the scenes, a battle between those who want justice and those who want to ensure the full story never results in prison sentences for their comrades. We also have to consider State Capture 2.0. The networks and methods that were perfected during the Zuma years didn't just disappear. The playbook is out there. Corrupt individuals have learned from the mistakes of the Guptas. They are now more sophisticated, more careful to cover their tracks. The looting of state resources continues, perhaps in a less blatant, more decentralized way. It's now happening at provincial and municipal levels, flying under the radar of national media attention. The secret of state capture isn't just about what happened in the past, it's about the systems and vulnerabilities that remain in place today. The Zondo report was a diagnosis, but the disease hasn't been cured. The ghost of state capture still haunts the halls of power, and many of its deepest, darkest secrets are yet to be revealed. Some details are still under wraps for a reason. We have a two-tiered health system in South Africa. If you have money and medical aid, you have access to world-class private healthcare. If you don't, you rely on the public system. And for millions, that system is in a state of perpetual crisis. We see the stories: overcrowded hospitals, equipment shortages, exhausted staff. The official line is that the government is doing its best with limited resources to serve a massive population. But what if the problem runs deeper? Is our health system being underfunded on purpose? That question might sound like a conspiracy theory, but let's look at the facts. The secret isn't necessarily a sinister plot, but a matter of priorities and consequences. For decades, the budget allocated to public health has not kept pace with population growth and inflation. This is a deliberate political choice. When the national budget is carved up, money is allocated to other things, perhaps a bloated cabinet, questionable SOE bailouts, or defense spending. Every rand that goes there is a rand that doesn't go to a clinic in the Eastern Cape. This chronic underfunding has a cascading effect. Hospitals can't afford to maintain or replace critical equipment like MRI machines or even basic X-ray units. They can't hire enough doctors and nurses, leading to impossible staff-to-patient ratios and burnout. This, in turn, leads to a decline in the quality of care, medical errors, and tragic, preventable deaths. It's a slow-motion disaster caused by thousands of small budget cuts and poor decisions over many years. Then there's the issue of corruption within the health sector itself. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed this in the most brutal way, with scandals around the procurement of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Inflated contracts were handed out to politically connected companies with no experience for huge sums of money. This wasn't just theft, it was blood money, stolen from a budget meant to save lives during a national emergency. And this is just one example of a rot that runs deep in provincial health departments. The proposed National Health Insurance, or NHI, is presented as the solution to all of this. The idea is to create one unified health system for all. But many critics fear that without fixing the fundamental problems of mismanagement, corruption, and underfunding in the current public system, the NHI will simply extend that brokenness to the entire healthcare sector, potentially destroying the functional private system in the process. The secret, therefore, is that the crisis in public health is not an accident. It is the direct result of a sustained lack of political priority and a tolerance for corruption. It's not that there's no money in the country, it's about where that money goes. While the political elite can afford to use the private system, there is little urgency to fix the public one that everyone else depends on. A country doesn't exist in a vacuum. It makes deals, signs treaties, and enters into agreements with other nations and powerful international corporations. These deals can shape our economy, our foreign policy, and our daily lives for generations. Most of this happens in the open, but not all of it. Are there secret international deals affecting South Africans? The answer is almost certainly yes, and the secrecy surrounding them is where the danger lies. Let's think about major infrastructure or energy deals. We've had the infamous nuclear deal that was thankfully stopped, but the impulse behind it remains. A government might enter into a massive loan agreement with another country to finance a project. The terms of these loans, however, are often kept confidential. What have we promised in return? Have we mortgaged a key national asset like a port or a railway line as collateral if we can't repay the loan? Countries across Africa have fallen into this debt trap, and we are not immune. Then there are the deals around our natural resources. South Africa is rich in minerals, platinum, gold, coal. When multinational mining corporations are granted licenses to operate here, they negotiate deals on royalties and taxes with the government. Are we, the people who own these resources, getting a fair price? Or are we signing away our national wealth for a fraction of its value, with the details hidden behind commercial confidentiality clauses? This secrecy creates a breeding ground for corruption. When a deal is negotiated behind closed doors, it's easy for kickbacks and bribes to be built into the terms. A politician might agree to a terrible deal for the country in exchange for a personal benefit. Without transparency, without the public and parliament being able to scrutinize the terms, we have no way of knowing if we are being sold out. Consider our foreign policy positions. Sometimes South Africa takes a stance on the world stage that seems to baffle observers and contradict our stated values. Could these positions be influenced by secret agreements or dependencies we're not aware of? Are we siding with a certain global power not out of principle, but because of a debt we owe or a deal we've made? The lack of transparency makes it impossible to have an honest public debate about our place in the world. The ultimate secret is that we, the citizens, are often the last to know about the international commitments being made in our name. These deals, signed in secret, can have profound and long-lasting consequences, locking us into economic and political arrangements that don't serve our best interests. The narrative is always that these are sensitive negotiations, but too often sensitive is just another word for secret. Here's what we found out. So, there you have it. From the invisible eyes watching our data to the invisible hands manipulating our economy, the secrets are all around us. It's easy to feel powerless, to feel like these are huge, unstoppable forces. And in some ways they are, but knowledge is its own kind of power. Knowing how the load-shedding schedule might be a political tool, or understanding why your groceries cost so much, changes how you see the world. It replaces confusion with clarity, and apathy with anger. And sometimes anger is the first step towards change. These secrets thrive in darkness and silence. They persist because we are too busy, too tired, or too distracted to ask the hard questions. They rely on us accepting the simple, official story. But the simple story is rarely the true one. The truth is always more complex, more messy, and often more infuriating. Our job as citizens is not to have all the answers, but to never stop asking the questions, to demand transparency from those in power and to hold them accountable when they fail us. The story of South Africa is one of resilience. We've overcome impossible odds before and we can do it again. But it starts with being informed, with talking to each other, and with refusing to accept the convenient lies we are told. The challenges are immense, but so is our collective strength when we are armed with the truth. Stay informed, stay curious, and don't let the secrets stay hidden. Subscribe for more eye-opening content.